the supply-demand gap when you're producing too much debt, and you have also a shortage of buyers. What's happening now as we have to sell all this debt is we then do have enough buyers.
Did you know that just 10% of the world's population controls 84% of the global wealth? In a world where wealth is so unevenly distributed, understanding the forces that drive our economy is more crucial than ever. In this eye-opening journey, we're diving deep into the mind of Ray Dalio, one of our era's most successful investors and hedge fund managers. Dalio, known for his unique insights into the economic machine, has demystified the complex world of macroeconomics, making it accessible to everyone. From dissecting the mysterious deflationary depression cycle to unraveling the secrets behind economic booms and busts, we're decoding the hidden patterns of the economy. But why should we care? Understanding these patterns is vital to not just surviving, but also thriving in today's ever-changing financial landscape. What if you could anticipate market trends, make more innovative investments, and secure your financial future? Imagine having the playbook of a financial genius at your fingertips. But here's the burning question. Can Dalio's principles be the compass you need to navigate the turbulent waters of the global economy? Are his strategies the missing link between economic theories and real-world financial success? Without further ado, let's get started. Let's dive deep into a topic that's as tricky as it is crucial: credit and debt. Think of credit as a magic wand that gives you the power to buy now and pay later. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? But as with all great powers, it comes with great responsibility. And that's where debt enters the picture. Let's break it down. Credit is essentially a trust-based system. It's like a friend saying, "Hey, I'll spot you some cash now. You pay me back later." Seems simple, but here's where it gets tricky. If you can't pay it back, that's when problems start brewing. Now here's a twist. Not all debt is a bad guy in our financial story. Our economic guru, Ray Dalio, shares a valuable insight. He believes that managing debt is more nuanced, especially when looking at the bigger picture, society as a whole. It's all about balance. Too little credit, you're missing out on growth, like underfunded education or crumbling infrastructure. And too much of it, you're walking into a debt trap, erasing all those gains. Smart borrowing is the key. It's not just about borrowing, it's about borrowing with a plan that helps you and the society grow economically without falling into a debt pit. Remember folks, credit and debt are two sides of the same coin. Used wisely, they can propel us towards prosperity. Mismanaged, they can lead to economic downfall. Now, this brings us to another relating aspect. Imagine every time you borrow money, you're not just making a deal with the bank, you're making a promise to your future self. A promise that says, "I'll spend less tomorrow because I'm spending more today." This isn't just about you or me, but our entire economy. This borrowing and spending kickstarts what Dalio calls a predictable sequence of events, shaping the economy's ups and downs. First up, the short-term debt cycle. About 5 to 8 years of economic mood swings. It starts with expansion, more spending, higher incomes, rising asset values. Sounds great, right? But too much spending can outpace production, leading to our old foe, inflation. When the central bank steps in, raising interest rates, borrowing gets pricier. This cools down spending and incomes, leading to deflation. If things get too cool, we might slide into a recession. That's when the central bank plays hero, lowering rates to warm things up again, pushing us towards expansion. Now, strap in for the long-term debt cycle, a massive wave that rolls over 75 to 100 years. Lenders keep the cash flowing despite accumulating more debt in the short-term cycles. But as history shows, the past isn't a crystal ball for the future. Here's where it gets heavy. The debt burden. It's all fine and dandy when income growth keeps up with debt. Trouble brews when debt outpaces income. Think of it like a financial high tide that keeps rising. Eventually, it peaks. And that's when the tide dramatically pulls back, causing deleveraging. Deleveraging can be brutal. Spending drops, borrowing stalls, Incomes fall and social tensions rise. It's like a financial storm that resets the system. And remember, external shocks like COVID-19 can trigger these events unexpectedly. Now, let's explore the magician's toolbox of the economy. The 4 essential methods used to manage and deleverage an economy, as identified by economic maestro Ray Dalio. First up, austerity. Think of it as tightening the belt on spending. Sounds straightforward, right? But here's the catch. When everyone starts spending less, incomes decrease because one person's spending is another person's income. The result is a vicious cycle that can lead to depression. Next, we have debt restructuring. It's like a negotiation table where banks and borrowers come together to modify the terms of debt. Think lower amounts, extended periods, or reduced rates. While this seems like a good move, it can lead to decreased spending and incomes, flirting with deflation. Third, the redistribution of wealth. Here, the government steps in like Robin Hood, taking fiscal measures to redistribute wealth. But beware, this approach can backfire as government spending on unemployment and stimulus might skyrocket while tax income dwindles. And finally, the big one, central bank money printing. Unlike the first 3, this one's an inflation-inducing powerhouse. Remember the 2008 crisis? The U.S. Federal Reserve printed over $2 trillion. This involves the central bank creating money to buy assets and fuel the economy with social benefits and stimulus programs. But here's where it gets exciting. Central banks and governments sometimes mix and match these tools to balance deflationary and inflationary pressures. It's like a high-stakes balancing act. Too much on either side and things could topple. Now, guided by the insights of Ray Dalio, we'll explore the 2 main types of debt crises, deflationary and inflationary. First up is the deflationary debt crisis. Picture a country like a giant ship floating on a sea of debt, primarily in its currency. While these crises are tough to handle, Dalio points out that smart policymaking can steer the ship through the storm. But beware, even the best navigation comes at a cost, and some passengers might end up overboard. In these crises, it's all about balance. Policymakers must be like skilled sailors, managing the economy to avoid crashing the economy. Next, we have the inflationary debt crisis. Imagine now our country's ship is floating on a sea of debt, but this time in foreign currencies. It's a whole different ballgame. Policymakers can't just bail water out. They must decide who gets a life jacket and who doesn't. This situation often leads to significant currency devaluations, making the crisis even more challenging. In this scenario, keeping the ship afloat is a delicate task. Even a small wave can tip the balance, drastically falling the currency's value. Remember the 4 tools of deleveraging we've talked about? Here's where they come into play. Austerity and defaults are deflationary. Money printing is your inflationary and growth stimulant. Wealth transfers? They're about picking winners and losers. Each tool has its role in navigating these crises. As Dalio puts it, the key to a beautiful deleveraging is in the mix. It's about using the right combination of these tools at the right time to balance the economic ship without capsizing it. Now, let's unravel the intriguing deflationary depression cycle. Well, we find ourselves in the Goldilocks period in the early stages. Here, debt grows alongside income. It's a time of equilibrium, where borrowed money fuels productive activities like business expansions, leading to a healthy balance in the economic ecosystem. Next, we enter the bubble phase. It's like a financial party. Debts climb faster than incomes, fueling a surge in asset returns and growth. This period is self-reinforcing. Rising incomes and asset values boost borrowing capacity, creating an intoxicating upward spiral. But beware, this is a fragile bubble, inflated by debts growing faster than the ability to repay them. Then comes the top. It's the high point where everything looks rosy, but it's also where the risk of a fall is most significant. Short-term interest rates rise, closing the gap with long-term rates and making cash more attractive. This shift signals the start of the bubble's burst, planting the seeds of a looming recession. Now we enter the depression phase, dominated by debt reduction and austerity. This period is marked by deflationary forces. It's a challenging phase characterized by a significant drop in demand for goods, services, and investments as the value of assets plummets. But there's hope in the form of a beautiful deleveraging. This is when the four levers, austerity, debt restructuring, wealth redistribution, and money printing are balanced perfectly. The goal? To stimulate growth without causing hyperinflation or a new debt bubble. In the final stage, pushing on a string, central banks face a unique challenge. Picture central bankers are trying to rev up the economy, slash interest rates, and buy debt. But nothing's happening. It's like pushing on a limp string across a table. Not much movement, right? This occurs late in a long-term debt cycle. The economy's growth slows and traditional money maneuvers just don't cut it. The term emerged in the 1930s when policymakers first faced this conundrum. And if central banks overdo it, say by printing too much money, we hit what's called ugly inflationary deleveraging, a fancy term for a financial mess. So the central banks need to get creative, finding new ways to inject money directly where it'll actually be spent. It's a fine line to walk. Too little action and the economy stalls. Too much and it overheats. Well, we've seen how economic patterns repeat themselves, how crises unfold and resolve, and how understanding these rhythms can be a powerful tool in your financial arsenal. Yet, the true challenge lies in applying these insights to your own financial journey. So, as we wrap up, how will you use Dalio's wisdom to reshape your financial destiny? Will you become a passive observer or an active participant in the grand economic dance? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching.